Alright, so we have just been dropped deep in the African savanna where we'll be staying at a village for the next few days, trying to track down some of the most iconic and dangerous animals on this earth. And each day that we're here, we're going to be going out and tracking these animals, researching them, and learning about ways that we as humans can protect species like rhinos, elephants, buffaloes, hippos, Nile crocodiles, pangolins. What's crazy is the village that we're staying at for the next few days is frequently visited by animals such as lions, hyenas, leopards, big predatory species, because there's no fences around the outside of this area, which is terrifying, but at the same time super cool, because we're going to be having a truly wild experience here on these beautiful African lands over the next few days. This is the start of a two-part series. Little did we know the wild events that were going to unfold involving one of Earth's most proficient hunters on our final day of this trip. So after a 15-hour flight and a 6-hour drive deep into the bush, we made it to a remote camp, home of the Black Mambas, the world's first all-female anti-poaching unit who patrol and protect this 10,000 hectare property every single day. So this right here, the skulls of 3 rhinos that were actually poached from Oliphant's West Nature Reserve. Now the reason why these rhinos are poached so heavily is because each kilo of one of these rhino horns is worth about $50,000 on the black market, and they have the potential for these horns to grow upwards of 6 kilos, which is just crazy, lots of money. Now these rhinos don't actually die from getting their horns chopped off, but obviously beforehand the poachers will shoot these animals, chop the horns off, and leave the carcasses out there. You can even see a bullet wound going through the skull of this rhino right here. Paints a really clear picture in your head of what would have been happening out there in the wild. At one point in Kruger a long time ago, it was estimated that upwards of 3 rhinos were getting shot every single day. And a species with not many individuals out in the wild, that's a scary statistic to think about. But this is where we're going to be sleeping. So amazing looking over this African savanna and knowing that all of those species are living out there. So what we're going to do now is actually go for a bit of a walk through the bush and see if we can track some down on day 1 of this adventure. So we're just making our way up this dry creek bed at the moment, and take a look at this. We're looking for some big animals that call this place home, and this right here is the biggest. You can actually see this big footprint in here. That's from a big elephant. And what they've done here is they've actually dug into the ground using not only their trunks but their feet to actually collect water. So if you come right in, you can see, and we dig it out like this, there's all of that water. A giant animal has just been standing here collecting water. We're gonna keep walking just up this way and see if we can find any. There we go. So we've just got a big herd of elephants behind us at the moment. The amazing thing about this group is there's actually a young elephant, about 1.5 months old, just up near this big female up here. And what she's doing right now is she's sitting still watching us, making sure that we're not a threat to her babies. But what these elephants are doing right now is they're constantly moving through this landscape, because one of that size can eat about 200 kilos of grass and of all these bushes throughout the day. And they're such big animals, so they have to keep constantly moving, finding that new grass. And so when they have an infant of that size, that baby elephant up there, they won't move more than 5 kilometers from a water source. So it's a telling tale that there is a river around here somewhere. So what we're going to do now is head down to that river and try to see some big Nile crocodiles and maybe even some hippos. Beautiful to see a big group of elephants out here in the wild here in South Africa. Can't get too close to these ones. Elephants are by far the smartest animal on these lands, even taking into account the tone of your voice. For instance, if you're speaking too softly, they've been known to take that as suspicious behavior and may get defensive. And even though the big elephants in this herd would be over 5 tons, they have the ability to reach speeds of over 40 kilometers an hour. Not something that you want charging towards you through this rugged terrain. But believe it or not, the species that we found next is even deadlier. but they're not necessarily going to chase, like run up from the river. So we've just made it down to the river. And take a look at this. Over on the bank is not only the second largest species of crocodile on earth, the Nile croc. And this is my first time actually seeing one, but there's a massive pod of hippos just over that way. We'll get the drone up in the air and get you some footage of this beautiful river. But that right there is the animal that kills the most people here in Africa, the hippo. So these Nile crocs, right? Second biggest crocodile on earth. The only biggest species is a saltwater crocodile, which we have back in Australia. But there's thoughts that since there's so much more food out here for these big Nile crocodiles, there is a chance that they could grow up over 6 meters long, which 6 meters and 17 centimeters is the biggest crocodile that's ever been on record, low long, caught in the Philippines. But yeah, with so much food out here, when one of these hippos dies, you'll see all the crocs feeding on them. There is a chance that there could be Nile crocs out there even bigger than that, which is pretty insane. So that Nile crocodile that we saw just out in the river before has actually turned around and he's coming back over towards us. And the crazy thing about this big grass area right here is this is where the hippos are grazing. So what we think we're gonna do is get a camera trap, set it up here, a motion activated camera trap, and see if we can get any hippos on camera grazing after dark. We're gonna be camping in a dry riverbed not too far from here in the next few days. So it'll be cool to do some exploring at night, see what other species we can find. But yeah, surrounded by big Nile crocodiles, big pod of hippos. Pretty cool. On average, 2 people are killed by hippos every day here in Africa, making them the deadliest mammal in this country. And with rough estimates of Nile crocodiles killing around 1 human a day as well, these are 2 creatures that you do not want to mess with. Matter of fact, while we were staying here, a man lost his leg to one of these crocodiles in this exact same river while trying to cross in a shallower section further downstream. When it comes to the animal kingdom, taking risks like crossing these rivers is sometimes necessary for survival, and it's all percentage based. For instance, if I tried to swim across this river right here, I believe there is a 0.1% chance of me making it to the other side alive. Pretty wild. So the hippos are just down in that river over there. You can see them watching us right now. But later on tonight, they should be up here. We've just found this little game trail. Lots of hippo droppings everywhere. So I'm guessing that later on tonight, after dark, after we move out of this area, they'll come up here and graze for the night. So what we've got is a little trail camera, and we're gonna set it up and see if we can get any activity after dark, because that's when the animals will be the most natural, not defensive like they are right now looking at us. So what we're doing right now is we're walking through the African bush at night, and we're not looking for a big species, a big predatory species like we're hoping to film over the next few days. We're actually looking for a smaller creature that should be sitting up in these trees. And it's a species that I've always wanted to film since I was little. Very camouflaged animal, but at night they stand out from the color of the leaves. All right, and take a look at this right here. That is a beautiful chameleon, and one of the main species that we wanted to find on this night walk out here in the African bush. Not so much a deadly species, you know, we're walking out through these little paths, looking in the trees, and around us are leopards, lions, hyenas. But this little guy has to be one of the most amazing species I've ever found. They're not like any other species of lizard that we have here. Look at those little hands. They grip onto you like little pincers. Whoa. So one of my favorite things about chameleons, right, which is different to any other species of lizard, is how they actually hunt. So in that mouth, they actually have a giant tongue, which they will shoot out like a bit of a rocket and will stick onto their prey, which will most likely be grasshoppers, little bugs in this area. Yeah, you can crawl on my face if you want. And they'll actually stick that tongue onto their prey, pull it back into their mouth and swallow it. Where are you, buddy? Is that a lion? Very far. And you know, it's crazy because we're dealing with this chameleon right now, and just down the valley, down that way, we're hearing a lion vocalizing. No fences between us. Always big days over here in Africa. So we're gonna set up our little camp up on the top roof tonight and fall to sleep listening to lions call in the background. Pretty wild. All right, see you, buddy. So we've just left the camera trap for the past night, and we're gonna check if any creatures have been grazing or moving past this one little game trail that we set it on. Super keen to see what's been happening after dark as well. All right, so we're just checking through the footage at the moment. We've got 16 videos from the past few days. Look at that. Big family of elephants moving through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Big African elephants, the largest land animal on earth. That's so cool. Look at that big one. Looks straight at the camera. Such magical animals, hey. So that was late in the afternoon, the first video that we got on this camera. Super cool. Yeah, there we go. So it's nighttime now, and this camera has picked up a hippo and its baby grazing after dark. So this hippo grazing right now has the ability to eat up to 150 kilograms of grass in one night. So that's why this whole area is cleared, because you saw how many hippos were in that pod right there. Let's see what we got the next day. Look at that! Are you kidding me? A giant rhino. That is amazing. You know, as we were coming down to check on this camera this morning, we actually saw rhino tracks, but the fact that it actually went down to the river and we got this magic footage of such a rare and amazing species is super cool. That's a big white rhino. And I mean, look at this creature. It's such a beautiful animal. Hopefully within the next day or so, we actually get to spot one of these creatures on foot and get up close to it on camera. Would be super cool. Heaps of other cool videos of elephants. Look at the size of this one right here. You can see every little wrinkle in this elephant's skin. And you know, it's the same as humans. These creatures are so intelligent, and the mothers are very protective, but it helps the whole herd survive during harsher conditions, especially now during the droughts. You know, we're going to a place later on which is going to have a lot of elephants in it, and that's because they move to wherever the waters are. And these big female elephants, which could be 30 or 35 years old, often have knowledge from past migrational routes that actually lead to the watering holes. I love using trail cameras. I love putting them out into nature wherever I go, but this has to be some of the best footage that I've ever got on a trail camera before. Seeing these huge animals up close, and yeah, how cool is that? We're gonna keep going. The plan for today, exploring more of this African landscape, walking through the savanna and seeing what other species we can get before we have to leave this place. It's a pretty wild feeling, hey? Oh, look at that, baby warthogs. And that's what I mean. That's a potentially dangerous animal as well, because the mother's up that way and the babies have just shot off there. Now, if that was something like a lion or a leopard, that'd be a lot scarier. Even an elephant. Elephants kill more people than nearly anyone out here, just behind hippos. That's what I was saying. It's a really crazy feeling walking out here in the bush in Africa by yourself, because you're surrounded by so many big creatures, megafauna, rhinos, elephants, creatures like leopards. Very scary because no doubt we've walked past them and they've seen us, but it's very hard to spot them in their natural environment. Wouldn't have it any other way. Such a cool place to be exploring. So one of the most important conservation endeavors that the people go on in this park are snare sweeps, because throughout the year there's no doubt thousands of snares set throughout this area to catch things like zebras, impala. Those impala and those zebras are actually sold for not only their skins but bushmeat across the lands of Africa. And we're looking at different game trails where these animals will be moving, because that's where the poachers will set these snares, even the possibility of there being injured animals caught in those areas. And when there's a stressed or injured animal, all that's doing is attracting predators, so it won't be stuck in that snare for long before the hyenas or lions in this area get to it. But hopefully it doesn't come to that today. We're going to be walking up this dry riverbed and seeing if we can remove any snares before any animals get stuck in them. One of the main species that we're looking for is the leopard, one of the biggest cats in this area. And during the day, they'd be taking cover in rocky caves like this, up in trees, which is a pretty wild thing to think that around us in this area is a cat of that size that has killed people over here in Africa before. But we're in a big group at the moment, moving up this little stream, and leopards are mainly nocturnal species, so they'll be coming out after dark to hunt normally smaller prey items than us people. So this zebra up here, you can see one of them actually has an injured tail, which means that there's likely predators in the area, whether that was a hyena or a lion having a go at it. There's about 4 or 5 individuals just up this way. This is the area that we're snare sweeping, and these are the animals that these poachers are coming in here and trying to actually catch. So, you know, by us removing snares today, we're saving this animal right here, which is really good to see. Having a bit of a standoff with this zebra right now. It's pretty cool.
If everyone else jumps back, we can film it.
Is it an impala, Carl?
This looks like a young kudu.
Kudu.
Oh, really?
This right here is a dead kudu, we think. And what we found next to it was a piece of thick wire. Now, this is from a snare that poachers have actually come in on this land and set. And we're guessing that it's died from getting trapped in a snare, whether it choked to death or whether it just couldn't feed. No doubt hyenas have come and actually fed on this carcass after it's actually died. But this is the reason that we came out here to do these snare sweeps, because beautiful animals like this, kudu, is such an amazing animal to see in person. One of my favorites that I've seen on this trip, and to see one like this from humans is absolutely disgusting. So the more snares that we can remove from this area today, the more animals that we're saved, because there's hundreds, if not thousands of snares set on this reserve and removed every single year. And this is what happens. This could have been a beautiful young kudu out there in the wild, and they didn't even use it for bushmeat. Maybe they found it too late and the meat was already rotting and they just decided to leave this animal. We're gonna keep hunting around. Really tough thing to see, but a big wake-up call. This is part 1 of a 2-part series here on the wildlands of South Africa. In part 2, we have one of the most insane encounters with one of the biggest species of cats on Earth, which also happens to be one of the hardest species to find in this reserve, the leopard. It's a leopard kill.
Somewhere else, it probably shouldn't be here.
Is that fresh?
Very. He's going to come back, so we must move.
Alright, let's go. Now, the only way that the Black Mambas can continue this incredible work is from donations. So if you want to help protect all the animals that you've seen in this video, I'll leave a link to donate in the description. And remember, any donation helps and it goes a long way over here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to support me. Go check out my Instagram for more behind the scenes content and information. And we'll see you next week in the next adventure.